Hey friends, my name's Stevie Taylor. Welcome to the Gig Life Podcast. My guest today is the legendary Sydney drummer percussionist Steve Marin. We had a really good chat. He's got a very interesting story. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you can too. So sit back and enjoy. Cheers. Man, I think we're on.
Let's do it.
Steve Marin.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. Welcome to the show.
Oh, lovely to be here.
Yeah, you're the first cab off the rank, so we'll see how we go, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
We'll just rip straight into it, I think. So,
Yeah, no.
Where did it all begin for you?
Oh, geez. Music started pretty young for me. Dad's like a singer-songwriter, I guess you could say, coming from the folkloric side of Chile music. So I was born in 1982. My parents immigrated in the 70s. My older brother was born in Chile.
Yeah. You were born in Australia?
I was born, first one born in Sydney, in Auburn. So for me, by the time I came around, Dad had his band and was doing gigs around Sydney within the Latin community, playing predominantly Chilean Andean folkloric music. So that was my first kind of exposure to music, I guess. That was always in the house. Dad was at gigs, there'd be rehearsals.
You sit around and...
Yeah, we were always kind of listening to a lot of Chilean music growing up. So yeah, my first exposure to music was that. I guess, elements of Western music would kind of sneak in every so often. Mum would listen to, ABBA and stuff like that of the time, Bee Gees. But it was predominantly Latin, even more specific, Andean folkloric music that I was listening to. So by the age of about 4 or 5, I started picking up some of those instruments, panpipes, zampoñas.
So you weren't drawn to percussion straight away?
No, well, I mean, there are percussive elements within that music.
Right,
so the one main percussion instrument, I guess, that features a lot within the whole Andean region is the bombo leguero, which is the Argentinian term. But every kind of region has their version of a bombo, which is a rawhide bass drum, basically. So that was, percussion-wise, that was the first thing I ever played. I got a bombo for Christmas when I was about 5. And my brother got a charango for the same Christmas, which is a 12-string armadillo shell, like small guitar.
Right, yeah.
And that's where we started. I think that was our first instruments. A couple of panpipes and some bamboo flutes. And, cool. And checking out Dad's band and listening to music that Dad would be listening to, So within that, so that was the first exposure to music.
Yeah, that's cool. And you, just reading off your website, you turned pro when you're 14. Yep.
Our first paid gig, I think, I was about 7.
Yeah, cool.
Right.
Yep. And what was that?
Oh, that was at the Chilean Independence Day down at Fairfield Showgrounds, and I think we got about $20 each, and a couple of food tickets and a can of Coke or something.
Have you still got that $20?
Probably. It's probably somewhere buried deep within this couch.
Yeah, right. That's cool.
But yeah, it was from the age of about 14 where I started gigging with bands.
Yep.
Larger ensembles, playing, clubs. By the age of about 15, I did my first contract overseas. We were playing in a hotel lobby in Jakarta with the same lineup of that band that was playing Andean music, which had kind of slowly moved out into other genres of Latin music. So at that time, things like the Gypsy Kings was huge.
Yeah.
So we were playing a lot of kind of the Gypsy Kings type of music. Awesome. Latin dance music, just a little bit more folky.
Right. And how long was that run?
That was 3 months when I was in year 10. So I did a term and a half of year 10 via correspondence. And that was, pre-email correspondence. So it was
You had
literally
to wait for that
bricks
envelope to come. Yeah.
bricks of paperwork, and
Yeah.
try to smash it all out in a day, and then go and do gigs.
Yeah, and the gigs were every day.
Yeah, it was 6 nights a week, just like the contracts are now.
Yeah.
6 nights a week, 4 sets a night.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is pretty eye opening for a 14-year-old.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that was playing drums, and I think that was the first kind of big gig I got playing drums.
Yep.
Apart from that, it wasn't very long before that I actually got my first drum kit, which was just by chance, I guess.
Yep.
A friend of mine who was learning drums in that same folkloric band, drum kit lasted at his place for about a month till his mum said, "You got to get this thing out of here because it's just pissing us all off."
Yeah. And
so I asked mine. Oh, it was like a shitty old red wine export.
Yeah.
My brother had bought me a cymbal a couple of years before. He went into Billy Hyde's when they were over on Commonwealth Street.
Yep.
Knew jack shit about cymbals, didn't have much money.
Yep.
Kind of walked in and said, "I want the biggest one you got."
Yep.
So he got this big old 22 clunky ride, heavy. And that was my first cymbal. And you couldn't crash on it. You couldn't. It was, in hindsight, thinking back, it was probably a beautiful ride, but I just had no concept of cymbals.
Yeah, and you don't have it now.
And I'd hit it, with a mallet. It's like, oh, this thing sounds terrible. Is this what cymbals are meant to sound like? Because I'd never played drums.
Yeah, right.
Up until that moment. So my mate's kit got thrown out of his house, and he asked my brother and me if we'd want it. First of all, if we could have it. So we had to ask mum and dad. They were cool.
Yep.
My folks' thing was, they get home from work at about 6. Mm-hmm. So this was when I was in about year 9 or year 10. So their thing was, as soon as that garage door opens when they get home from work, the drums stop.
Yeah, right.
Until then, you can make all the noise you want.
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool because it's something I don't really have anymore.
Yeah.
But I had that thing of finishing school and running home.
Yep.
Just to squeeze in an extra 2 minutes of playing, and I'd get home at 3:10.
Yeah.
And literally just play for about 3 hours.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Every single day, and I wish I had that.
Definitely
almost that motivation.
Take it for granted, eh?
Yeah. Well, just having the time and having that youthful enthusiasm for.
And even harder now with kids, eh?
Yeah, of course. You got the family and jobs and school pickup and all this. Barely find half an hour to sit there and do rudiments, which is something I haven't done in weeks.
Yeah. And okay, so what was after that? Once you got back from Jakarta, and
I kind of started opening up into playing with more. Well, it kind of took 2 avenues. I was really into the broader sense of broader terms of Latin music. So once I discovered drums and moving further away from the folkloric stuff and being a teenager, obviously, I started discovering, like Afro-Cuban, Afro-Brazilian stuff.
Yep.
And that was predominantly the Cuban stuff was a big eye-opener in terms of Latin music.
Who was your guy? Who was your...
The first thing I remember getting was a friend of mine, a Chilean friend of mine who lived in the same suburb. And he gave me a tape. It was a mixtape of a band called Irakere. And it featured this album called The Best of Irakere, which was I think it was a mix of a couple of studio tracks and a gig that they'd done at Newport Jazz Festival, maybe. That I remember seeing on a documentary, a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And the director of the band saying, this was their first gig out of Cuba, with the embargoes and all that kind of stuff. They couldn't get out. The first Cuban band to leave to do a concert anyway after all the embargo mess. They played a 2-hour and 40-minute set, and from what the band leader was saying, not one mistake in this gig.
Yeah, right.
And it's such a frantic gig, and it just that one tape was the thing that grabbed me with Cuban music. So there's a couple of little angles I remember at that age when I discovered the drums, and then kind of 2 parts grew out of that. It was the Afro-Latin, mainly Cuban stuff, and then early 90s grunge. you know, and somehow I think they're the two main elements to what inspired me to play drums, and what kind of, I think it's you hear it in how I play. I hear it in how I play.
Right.
I've got this strange kind of mix of guys like Enrique Bla from Cuba and like Chad Smith.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
Because that's just the kind of stuff I grew up on, you know.
Yeah.
Heaps of Pearl Jam, heaps of Chili Peppers, heaps of Rage Against the Machine, as well as heaps of Los Bamban and heaps of Irakere, and so
that's an interesting.
That was the weird mashup of drumming for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And was there any sort of those sort of LA session guys that you kind of?
Well, I discovered that stuff. I discovered that stuff really kind of after.
Yeah.
So early mid-teens, started playing drums, had those two kind of schools. And it wasn't till like maybe getting close to 19, 20 that I discovered, you know, I heard of things like Return of Forever.
Yeah.
More fusion. And even within the pop realm, of mainstream Western music, I only listened to things that I kind of liked or things that I heard from school.
Right.
Because I just wasn't exposed to, you know, apart from, I think everyone in the world was, you know, the few Western LPs we had as a kid was Thriller, you know, so you'd listen to Thriller.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I was about 20, 21 that I actually kind of cared who played drums.
Who played them,
Yeah. That kind of thing. So I wasn't overly exposed to popular Western music.
Yeah.
And when I was, it was more when I was in high school, and it was only the cool stuff from then. You know?
Yeah.
So, by the time I got to my 20s, I had to come back to, you know, bands like Toto.
Yeah.
I remember hearing this stuff as a kid, and you'd hear things on the radio, but never put two and two together and realize, oh, cool, that's that guy, and that record, oh, that's JR and all that stuff, you know. For me, it was just some of the music that I heard.
Yeah. That's cool. All right, so we'll what was next?
20s. Well, for around 20s. Finished high school, started working with a couple of bands. Did about 2 years of working with a band called Tigramuna that was part of the Musica Viva in Schools program. So that was like maybe 150, 180 shows a year, touring around Australia doing this band was a folkloric Andean band that was, you know, fusing things with funk and jazz. And it was a really good outlet for me, that band being, I mean, I could play all the folkloric stuff, and that band always had killer drummers. Actually, my first two teachers, and probably the teachers that I hold in highest, you know, esteem, both played in that band.
Right.
And both Westies.
Right.
Actually, and Robbie Siracusa was one who was my teacher. He was my drum tutor in high school at Bosley Park High. He still lives in Bosley Park or Denver Park, and his daughters go to Bosley High.
Right.
And he was my drum tutor there. And he was the guy that came in and kind of kicked my ass and said, he could see that I could play, and I had the coordination for it. I had a quick ear. So he kind of took it upon himself to, you can play, but it means nothing.
Yeah.
If you can't read those dots, you're not going to do shit. And he was pretty dry about it.
Yeah.
I think back and I thank him, you know. He's actually depping for me on a couple of gigs now.
Yeah,
he's doing a tour that I can't do. And I hold the guy in the highest regard because he was amazing.
He saw something in...
Yeah, he saw something in me and realised, no, I think I better push this guy because you could probably see that I'm a bit lazy.
Diamond in the rough.
Yeah, it was kind of all coordination, bit of talent, but no inner drive. But I loved it, you know. So he was like, no, man, you're going to read. If you can't read that, then you might as well just give up now. It's not going to happen for you. So, and that kind of, got me to that point of wanting to do that, you know. And he was the one that showed me. He's like, you know, these crotchets. don't worry about learning how to read for now.
Yep.
Just learn how to read rhythmic figures.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't worry about learning, melody and scales, and at least for now.
Yep. Which you did later?
I did it. I pushed myself to do it.
Yeah.
Not enough, though.
Okay, yeah.
So while I can, and I think it would be really beneficial to any kind of tunes percussion I play, I'm not very fast at it.
Yeah.
But it's a lack of practice thing. Oh, it's like anything. It's like, I mean, it's another language.
It is, yeah.
If you're bilingual, and you stop speaking that second language for a couple of years, it slowly starts disappearing until 5 years later you realise, shit, I don't actually understand any of this anymore.
Yeah. So any of you young kids out there, learn to read.
And keep up the practice on it too.
Yeah.
Find a way of doing that.
Best thing I ever did was learn to read.
Yeah, it's so helpful. It's such an amazing tool.
Yeah. Okay, so that's your sort of early 20s?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was like out of high school.
Yep.
Started doing that Musica Viva gig. And then kind of early 20s was when I started branching out into doing kind of more Afro-Cuban popular dance music, I guess it could be umbrellaed as. So things that are known as styles like salsa, timba.
Yep.
Really getting heavily into that. And a friend of mine who I used to play with in a couple of the salsa bands around had just started this band called Veneno. Son Veneno it was back then. And it was like only a couple of months in. And he'd asked me to... Well, my brother had joined the band. Again, this was
your brother's bass player?
Yeah, my brother's bass player.
Yep.
Well, after going through all
that stuff,
folkloric stuff, he ends up on bass and I end up on drums.
Yep.
So this band had done like maybe 2 gigs as Son Veneno. And there was just kind of a covers thing playing, Afro-Cuban music that they really wanted to play. My brother ends up in the band, then I end up in the band a couple of months after. And then, Son Veneno starts kind of taking off early, around 2000.
2000,
yeah. Again, just predominantly playing Cuban covers or salsa covers. In all the, and that was a scene that was still happening back then, which isn't really happening now. So there were, at least 5 or 6 clubs that were having 12-piece Latin bands
regularly
playing every week.
Every week, awesome.
Every week, yeah.
So not much of that now.
No, not now. But I remember doing those gigs, with other bands from when I was about 15 or 16, even from year 10, playing with other salsa bands, and you'd do, you'd Friday, Saturday, Sunday playing with a 10-piece band at least.
Awesome.
Even just playing percussion or bongos or something, and it was $150 a gig. And
Still,
when you're 16,
it's a party, man.
Yeah, when you're 16, you'd rock up to school on Monday. You'd have a late night. There used to be a Sunday gig at the Harbourside Brasserie, I remember, and we wouldn't get home till about 1:30, 2 in the morning, and then have to go to school on Monday. But you had like $100 in your pocket.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm just shouting meat pies and Gatorades for everyone,
Yeah, that's cool.
So Veneno starts kind of coming through that scene.
Yep.
We had a gig a week, a gig every maybe 2 gigs a week, and then it starts kind of branching out into let's write some music. There's a lot of different musos start coming through the band. It's the one thing that I've always, Veneno's coming up to 19, 20 years now. And it's always had a great kind of work ethic in every angle it's taken, whether it was, hey, we're just going to play covers for salsa crowds because we've got gigs, to the let's write some original music, let's get all our ideas out, to the let's go do contract gigs, that's really cool. And the amount of musos that have come through the band have come through and then left and done other things. It's always been it's been that band that everyone kind of really steps up to the
Everyone
plate.
sort of buys into.
Yeah, myself. Even when I joined, when it was in its really early stages.
Yep.
Like had only done 2 gigs. It's like, yeah, this is going to be a fun band, you know.
Awesome.
And everyone that's kind of come through over the years has felt that, you know, you take one little step up when you come in and sit in with this band.
Yeah.
Whether you're there for a year or 5 years or, you know, 15 years, or it's always been that, you know.
That's very rare.
Yeah, it is.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It is. It's especially within a scene where that stuff is finished.
Yeah.
Like we don't have that kind of Latin scene anymore.
Yeah. But you're keeping it current.
Yeah.
For people that don't know, there's a new album out.
And the album's out.
I'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah, check that out. That's you know, that was a couple of years in the making. There's some music on that we wrote a long time ago. There's some of it that, you know, was written when we were living in London.
Yep.
Which would have been 2006. The whole band relocated. The whole band at the time, which was 7 of us, relocated to London. We were there for about almost a year and a half, just under a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. And from that, what's the word I'm looking for? Those guys at that stage.
Yeah.
Is it the same guys now?
There's about 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, everyone kind of, you know, moves on, does their thing. You know, leaves their stamp on the band.
Yeah.
And we all, you know, still keep in touch with each other. And
that's
it's
cool.
like everything. Yeah.
Everyone's
got kids and day jobs and
that's it.
You know, gigging here or gigging there.
Yeah.
But at that time it was, you know, we had released a first self-titled album. We were all around the 22, 23-year-old kind of bracket.
Yeah.
And we all pretty much did the same thing. We said, let's just move to London because we can as Aussies, and we're young enough, and there's nothing kind of holding us here.
That's cool. Yeah.
So everyone sold their cars and, you know, did whatever they had to do, packed a suitcase, got to London, find a place to live, find some gigs.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a struggle.
I was going to say, you didn't know what you're going to do when you got there?
No.
You just...
No, we thought it was, you know, it was a good place. Being Aussies, we'd instantly get visas to stay. So we could at least be based there and at least check stuff out within Europe. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we basically booked flights, booked backpackers for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and said within that 2 weeks we need to find a place to live. So we found a 3-bedder, 4-bedder, sorry. And there was 7 of us.
7 of us, yeah.
So it was pretty tight.
It's nice and cozy.
And then we just started hustling, you know. Awesome. We got gigs, some of us got teaching jobs, but the band was working.
Yeah.
The band, and we were doing, you know, festival runs, and
that's cool.
It was great. You know, it was a really good experience for all of us. We were all pretty young at the time, and I think playing, being exposed to different scenes, things you don't, you know, wouldn't necessarily see here. Mm-hmm. And I've always said that's, like, at least for me, the most inspiring thing when it comes to, I think music in general is seeing someone do it live, watching them do it.
Yeah,
I remember, you know, like big Afro-beat orchestras I'd never seen in Sydney, you know. And then, you know, you go out to London and there's, you know, little pockets of gigs happening everywhere. There's stuff you don't get to see, you know.
Yeah.
Big heavy-hitting gospel guys that were coming out of London at the time, which was something we hadn't heard of too much.
Right.
You know, 2005, it wasn't, you know, the gospel chops thing yet.
Yeah, I always thought that stuff sort of came out of America. So who were the sort of the big hitting?
But they were, you know, inspired by the Americans. I remember seeing the London Community Gospel Choir on within the first week that we all got to London. They were playing a festival. And apparently these guys were Madonna's band for a bit, and they sounded, you know, it was a gospel sounding church band from the States, but they were all, you know, London locals.
Yeah.
So the scenes like that, which I wouldn't have seen here.
No.
You know? Yeah. I remember going out to Panorama Festival, which is they line up all the steel pan bands because again, that's another massive scene over there that doesn't exist here.
Right.
And there'd be orchestras of about 40-piece steel pan bands, and maybe 15 bands. And the festival, it was like a competition. So they'd all be set up on these trucks that move, and basically the truck moves into position in front of the judges. And there's all these requirements to enter into the competition. I think your arrangement, don't quote me on this, but the arrangement needs to be a minimum of 12 minutes long and needs to, certain number of key changes or something. It was, I'll try to find the exact details of that. Yeah. But you'd get men and it'd be 5-6 hours of steel pan bands, 40-piece orchestras of steel pans, playing these ridiculous arrangements of like heavy, choppy stuff. It's like, man, we barely find, Errol. Yeah. I think Errol's the only steel pan player I know in Australia. I'm sure there's more. And then you see 40 in each band over there, So being exposed to that kind of stuff was really, really cool about that trip. After that, we just kind of came back.
Came home, yep.
Yeah, we got...
Did you kind of get sick of each other? And
Not all of us.
Not all of us, yeah.
No, but I mean, it was hard.
Yeah.
It was at the time, it was a very cool kind of brotherhood we had happening, which was awesome.
Yeah.
It really was that all for one for all type. We're all moving. We're all gonna live in this shitty little house, and we're all gonna do mad gigs. So
That's cool.
It was cool. We got to do gigs in Scotland and France, and
that's really cool.
And around London and little festivals, Belgium. It was a good time. And then we all kind of came back, but the band kind of kept on kicking. The band's always kicking around.
And how long were you there?
About a year and 3-4 months. It would have been about 16, 17 months or more.
Yep, cool. And you came back and kept gigging.
Yeah, the band kept on going up until then. I mean, other gigs that were happening for me, that weren't just Veneno, it wasn't huge at that time. Yep. I was starting to, I was starting to move into like doing some covers gigs and things like that, but it was never, I don't think up until like my mid-20s, I'd say, which, was only about 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
I'd say that I'd, be comfortable with doing a covers gig because I didn't grow up listening to covers.
Wow.
What we know as the Sydney covers,
Yeah.
It, I remember the first couple of instances of people calling, Superstition and stuff. And these were songs I just didn't know. I knew I'd heard them.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a thing I'd played.
Yeah.
So I remember the early covers gigs of people calling, September, real generic kind of tunes. And I just didn't know.
Man, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's real. I think back to it now, it's like, that's weird. So I knew,
it's not.
I
it's
knew
cool.
heaps of Afro-Cuban stuff. I knew heaps of kind of grunge rock stuff.
Yeah.
But when it came down to, I'm a working drummer, this is what a lot of working drummers are doing.
Yep.
This rep. And so I didn't know any of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Apart from that, is working at that time, a year before London, I just picked up a theatre gig. My first I've only done a handful of kind of theatre-y gigs like that, but that was the first one I did, which was Dirty Dancing. It was a production. It was the first production they've put together of that show, and it started in Sydney, so that was the worldwide premiere of it. They were looking for a drummer that could, play a bit of this. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie. I'm sure some female along the track has made you watch it. At the time,
it was first time I ever saw it was a
big hit.
It was an old school camp. It was school camp.
It was a big hit, but it was such a kind of C-grade movie.
For sure.
It's not big budget or anything. It became a kind of cult classic.
Yeah.
And it's got this really weird mix of, it's set in the 60s, so you've got like 60s soul type.
Yeah.
With a lot of kind of 30s ballroom Latin music, because some of the dance instructors teach there.
Yep.
but filmed in the 80s, so you've got 80s pop tunes.
Yeah.
So it's this weird mashup of,
Yeah,
three styles. Anyway, they put a band together for that show here, and that ran for a year.
Yeah.
So I think, because I could play the Latin stuff, and I could play the kind of poppiest stuff, and then I had to come into the soul.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it was my bag yet.
Yeah.
And that was a cool gig. That was my first kind of look into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
That's cool.
And then it was only a couple of months after that finished that we decided we were going to go, maybe about half a year, that we went to London.
Mm-hmm.
I got to London, and then the show was opening in London. And something had happened with their drummer.
Wow.
And she just kind of pissed off. So I did about 2 weeks of the show there.
Oh, yeah.
There was an option to kind of, hey, do you want to jump on?
Yeah.
I think they were at the Aldwych Theatre for about 4 years.
Mm.
So it might have been a good visa opportunity, but
For sure.
I did it for a year here. And then I moved overseas with, an originals band.
Yep.
And within 2 weeks of being there, they offered me the same gig that I was almost trying to run away from. So I couldn't really, it would be nice to stay there for the cash. But
Yeah, of course, yeah.
because we're, again, you get to a new place and you're trying to set yourself up, and
Yeah.
there wasn't much happening gigs or work wise for that, just to generate money. So that was my first kind of, dipping the toe into some theatre-y stuff.
Yeah, cool.
And that's when, Robbie's learn how to read thing really
Came in, for sure.
it worked.
And on, I mean, you do a few of those sort of shows now, and you're currently doing Juicy
I kind
Boys.
of came into doing a few more as the years kind of went on.
So just back to the reading. So obviously you get your book or your charts at the start of the run of the show. Does that over the course of the show, does music change?
Depending on the show. Again, I haven't done shows. I mean, there's so many sides of, I guess, what you could call music theatre.
Right.
Or the musicals. The ones I tend to do is more the kind of jukebox musicals, things like Bodyguard, Dirty Dan. Bodyguard was basically a Whitney Houston. The Whitney Houston songbook put to the movie of the Bodyguard.
One of the world's most iconic drum fills.
Yeah, which is one big smack, which was a sample.
Rest in peace, Ricky. Was it really?
Yeah, well, I mean, I played it, but
you played it.
That's on track,
Yeah.
Because you can't. There's some of those classic moments.
You can't
in some of those
them.
big tunes.
Yeah.
Like even playing Dirty Dancing is that time of my life.
Yeah.
Which I'm just totally over right now. I don't know how many hundreds of times I would have played it, but you tend to forget how iconic some of those, even drumming wise.
Yeah.
Some of the fills. There's some big songs there. So those ones are kind of fun to play, but they seem to be the kind of gigs that I've kind of gotten. They're not the big production of classic stage theatre.
Gotcha.
Not like a Cats type or
Right.
Les Mis or but it's kind of it's cool for me because that's what I like to play.
That's it. Yeah. That's
really like Bodyguard was a strange one, as far as the band being set up. So we're not on stage, we're not in the pit, we're kind of set up in the basement, in a studio kind of setup,
Right.
Full drum isolation in a booth.
Right.
You've got, my whole kit was mixed onto a 16-channel submixer that I'd get to my ears, and then through that mix I'd get another mix of the band. So it was really well set up. It sounded great. Again, adding kind of Whitney Houston's songbook around the story of the Bodyguard, the movie.
Right.
It just meant that we got to play all of Whitney's killer hits. So some big ballads.
And who was the Whitney? in that run?
It was Paulini.
Oh right. Okay. Yeah. Right.
The gun singer.
Oh,
Wow. Yeah.
Oh.
And again, because it's It's the Whitney songbook
Yep.
put on stage basically
Yep.
around
Yep.
the theme or the film of The Bodyguard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big bloody sing.
Yeah.
I don't think Whitney would have sung all those songs
Is
on
that
a gig,
right? Yeah.
you know. And
Yeah, without a
these
couple
guys are coming in doing it.
Couple of bags of coke.
Yeah, well, whatever gets you going.
Whatever
you know?
gets. Yeah.
But these guys are coming in and doing it 6-7 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for
No, I mean that's how Whitney would have got.
she would.
She would have bagged it up. And,
yeah. She had a lot of fun.
yeah.
Actually, that kind of got me into watching the Whitney doco thing that came out afterwards. And yeah, she went pretty hard, didn't she?
She did.
But what a phenomenal voice.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
And some great songs too.
Yeah. And so, just made me think about Idol then with Paulini. So you also toured with Damien Leaf, is that right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I've been doing Damien Lee's gig for a couple of years now.
Yep.
Yeah, Damo's great to work with.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of those guys that puts so much of himself into what he's doing that it doesn't fail. He doesn't
that's cool.
fail. He's such a straight up,
He's all in.
hard-working guy.
Yeah, into everything.
He
type
does
sort of-
that thing of, like everything he does just works out for him because of the amount of effort he puts into
That's
it.
it.
So, like he, writes a couple of songs and some of them go like worldwide ad campaigns, huge tunes. It's like, oh, I'm gonna write a book. Okay, books, great read that sells really well.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on I remember I'm going on a dancing show. We're in the middle of a tour. I forget what we were doing. And once everyone in the band's like, what, really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard, if you're not a dancer and you're going to go into a dancing show.
Yeah.
And we thought, good luck to you, but came second.
Just always.
But it was that thing, is like, yeah, I'm going to do a dancing show and I'm going to nail it and I'm going to do it properly. And everything he does, he's just nailed. He's a hell of a guy.
That's
he's
really
awesome to work with. And fortunate thing is I get to play with my brothers in that band. It tends to happen a lot that I end up in bands where my brother's playing bass and I'm playing drums.
That's really cool.
Which is great. It tends to it's almost like a package deal for a lot of people.
That's cool.
And I find that it's the age old classic thing of bass and drums are locked in. Then that's a lot of the work done.
That's it.
So whether we're doing a Latin gig or a Damien Leaf gig or whatever, I find myself playing lots of gigs with him, and it always sounds good because we just log in. Yeah.
That's really cool. We were talking early before we were rolling about the different sort of drum setups and the different shows that you've done.
Yeah.
Summer and Pits.
Yeah.
So tell us what are you doing with Jersey Boys? Are you in a pit?
Yeah,
or?
Jersey Boys now is the drum kit is set up on stage. It's set up on a wireless drum riser that they call the Turtle. We've renamed it Ringo. And it sits on a track that shoots it out onto stage. So it can when it's backstage with the curtains down, it's out of sight.
Right.
But for any scene change that they wish to do within the show, it gets thrown out onto the stage and it can be positioned wherever it kind of wants.
Yep.
So the drum kit is always being played live on stage while the band is either half off stage or they come on stage for certain scenes of the show. So there's parts where the band is playing live on stage. There's parts where they're playing backstage, but it's a good show because I'm used to doing, of the handful of shows that I've done, everything's kind of click. Every tune's played to click, and it just makes everything neat and fail safe. And this one isn't.
Okay.
The entire the first song is played to click, and then like a couple of little kind of bits on the end. But and it's cool because it the whole thing's kind of elastic. At least for me, coming into a show like that, and it's a well-established show, and everything's everything's perfect. Everyone everyone that works on that show is really hard working.
Yeah, it's good.
And make it, you make it happen. But it's a cool experience for me. Yeah. I've not done things like that.
That's
so.
cool.
Yeah, it's all, any kind of new thing like that is cool. I dig doing. I could there's a lot of hard work in that stuff, especially for me, because it's not something I do regularly.
Yep.
Like I was saying with my reading.
Yeah.
It's not. The more I do, the better it stays. But
yep.
I don't do it enough.
Yep.
So come into something like this, it's it's a challenge.
You hone your chops. And
you learn the gig, you read the gig, and you get it to a point where you're not reading it anymore because you're on stage.
And then it ends, and then you don't read for 6 months.
Yeah, right.
You get another reading gig. You go,
the next kind of session,
again.
next session or next theatre type gig comes up and.
Now, what are your thoughts on the sort of the YouTube generation of players these days?
God.
There's this thing now. I mean, we come from, we practice at home and we went out and we gigged and we always we gigged. That's what we do. Whereas there's the scene now, the YouTube playing covers sort of scene thing. Do you find yourself watching that stuff? Or
I don't know. Look, I recorded 2 drum covers, and I felt really weird doing it.
Right.
I know, as a working muso, it's kind of thing. Like I can't have a website that doesn't have any content,
of course,
right?
Of course.
But
I think that's different though, because you're promoting yourself.
I think within something like the beast that is YouTube, it's freaking amazing. Yeah. Let's just start with that. The guys like ourselves of our generation, you got a tape. Who didn't own the Dennis Chambers DCI video? And for me it was Weckl and
they were
exactly.
my videos. And Simon Phillips.
All of those ones. So YouTube comes out and it's like I can finally see videos of Cuban guys playing that I could only imagine how they played because there was no VHS recordings of guys playing over there that we'd get in Sydney. You'd barely get a tape that was taped and get this really shitty quality tape that had been taped over 5 times. So that's, at least for that style of music, that's all we got. So when something like YouTube comes along, it's amazing. I think it's cool. I think everyone should just put all their stuff out there. And it's especially in the to be able to check out as much stuff as possible is great.
That's cool.
Again, when you have such an easy entrance into the world, before, can you imagine doing a drum cover, in 1988? It would have been really hard. Record and film onto film
to have it sound any good.
And now you just chuck up a phone and you can record things, and I think it gives everyone the opportunity to get out there, and it happens in music scenes too. As soon as the scene is big, there's a lot more really good stuff that comes up. But when the scene is really big, there's a lot more really shit stuff that comes up. So you get more of everything. That's right. Along the YouTube guide, I dig it because you find the diamonds in the rough. I'm not a sit there and kind of, just sit there for hours looking through YouTube. But, within our drumming community, especially within Australia, which is pretty awesome, as far as, Facebook pages of drummers kind of sharing stuff and... and it's cool. There's people there that are really into filming themselves on a daily basis and saying, look how awesome I am. And good on you.
Yeah, good on you.
I personally feel a bit awkward doing that kind of stuff. But it's good to see, It's so awesome to be seeing dudes do shit that I can't.
They get joy out. Yeah, well, that's today. They get the joy out of it, which is
and for them it's like, look, I'm sharing whatever I have with the world. I was like, cool. I don't think I have anything like that in myself. That hey world, you have to look at me because I've just figured out this awesomeness. I really, couple of promotional things, and I like getting my band stuff out there.
Of course.
Again, it's not me. That's music that I've I'm not one of those guys that would sit there and write my own music.
Yep.
Top to bottom, guitar, bass,
yep.
drums, and sing it.
Yep.
It's always a collaboration with me, because I don't think I have that.
Yep.
I think I musically have the headspace.
Yeah, no doubt.
I've grew up playing a bit of guitar. My brother's a bass player, so it kind of rubbed off on me, and I play a bit of bass. And, I have a fair understanding of harmony, but to sit and write entire pieces of music, top to bottom, it's not me.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's scary too.
Hard. Yeah. Well, you've done it. I can't find the right starting point. But as soon as I get together with other people and the right other people, it just flows.
It's on. Yeah,
it's great.
Cool. That's really good.
It's great. It's really. My wife has a real ease of writing.
Yep.
Especially lyrics.
She's a songwriter. She's a
to begin with, she's a big reader.
Okay.
And I think if you're going to be a songwriter, a lyricist,
we
live in that.
You got to know words.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. We live in the day and age where every song that comes out that's popular is about being at the club or
love or broken heart.
Yep.
I
don't think people that are writing lyrics are actually reading books.
Yeah, that's right. Especially pop music.
Yeah.
Now, who do you see as sort of up and coming players that are kind of catching your eye? Australia wide, worldwide, local.
Look, I wouldn't even say up and coming. I'm saying,
but maybe that's not.
I would say people that I've finally come around to.
Yep.
Knowing that they're always there.
Yep.
I don't think it's that up and coming thing. I think it's people that have always been there that I just haven't totally sussed out. From dudes, guys worldwide that I remember seeing a bit of, and they're not like young up and coming cats, but I remember seeing bits of them, and then now to the points of being masters of guys like Julio Barreto out of Cuba, people like that. I wouldn't classify them as up and coming, but in saying that, the guys in Sydney, which is my scene, and the thing with being a drummer is that you don't get to play with other drummers.
That's right.
And being a father of two, if I'm not at a gig, I'm kind of at home. So I've kind of feels like I've been a bit out of the loop, but there's always I can pick off 5 guys that every time I watch them play around town, they've always get me.
Yep.
Carlos Odura, another fellow Chilean drummer, lefty, but his pocket is just everything he does from reggae to like a rootsy kind of. Every time I see him play, he just feels so good.
That's cool.
Yeah. Young Tully, Dom Kirk. I remember first handful of times I met Dom Kirk. He was 14 years old, and he used to get together with a couple of the percussionists who were a bit older, and it's like, oh, can we jam? And he's a little kid, he's a pretty little dude. Now I think he's the house drummer over at the Monday Jam.
Yeah.
And he's doing, he's been to Cuba a whole bunch of times to study the real heavy folkloric side of Afro-Cuban drumming, which is a dedication. That when you go so heavily into something like that, you really have to give it all your time and all everything your brain space to be able to accomplish something like that, because it's ceremonial playing. It's a whole other language, and he's really taken it upon himself to want to learn that stuff. And there's not many people that have.
Right. So
he's a heavy little dude. Well, he's not so little anymore. He's 20 something. I think he's not a up and comer or anything. Yeah. But it's guys like Buddy.
Yeah.
I just yeah, every time I speak to Buddy, he always like, yeah, you know, I'll play a bit of drums.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll sing a bit.
Yeah.
Bullshit, man.
Yeah, I want to get him.
Play
I want to get him on the show. So
play the shit out of fucking drums.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, he's a guy that he kind of really, you know, he's not up there rating himself as like the hottest shit. But man, every time he hits anything, feels good. It feels so good. You know? Yep. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of guys around here in town. Like I said, I don't get to get out much.
Yeah.
But and again, I wouldn't even call them up and comers, but
yeah,
guys in the scene that hopefully keep on just growing into bigger, better things. You know.
What's the strangest thing, the weirdest thing you've ever seen on a gig?
There's been a couple. I don't think I've ranked.
Like that's dropped your jaw and you've gone, fuck.
I've done gigs where the percussionist, Latin gig where in Sydney where the percussionist threw up into a pot plant. That was on stage.
Did he have to run off to it or?
No. Well, it was like the pot plant was on stage.
Yeah.
He was set up close to it.
Yeah.
And kind of just leaned over and, you know, partied a bit too hard.
Yeah.
And just had to get it out.
And then back
on
to work.
stage, and then just kept on going.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like nothing happened. One really weird one. We were doing a gig at the Lansdowne with Veneno, real early days, and we used to have this vibe where it felt like it was a punk gig, but we were playing Afro-Cuban music.
Yeah.
All our gigs are really high energy, and you know we'd be doing gigs at Darling Harbour. A singer would be climbing up the speaker stack and jumping, and people. It's not a thing you see in Latin kind of music. You know? But that was just how we vibed on it. You know. We did a gig at the Lansdowne, and our percussionist was playing cowbell at the time. And we're like, this is just real heavy part of the song, and he gets so vibed up, and he throws a cowbell and the beater on the floor, and it bounces off the floor and knocks a beer out of the guy's hand that's standing like probably about 4 meters. So he copped a cowbell that smashed a schooner out of his hand. I think if he sat there and tried to do it 1,000,000 times, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. If he threw a cowbell onto the floor of the stage, anything else could happen. But that was the kind of band where, like, I had to let people know when we were playing a backline. Like, this is a backline. You can stand on this drum kit if you want.
Yeah.
Just don't do that shit to mine.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a rockin' band. The strangest thing. Let me think about that. There's been a couple of classic moments. I mean, the whole. No, there was one that was kind of funny. It really kind of bent my mind a bit. I was playing a gig at Rock Lily, and the chain snapped on the bass drum beater, on the pedal, sorry. And I just couldn't think of what to do, so detuned the floor tom. We pulled the bass drum mic out, and but playing 4 on the floor stuff. That was strange. It was strange as a drummer to think, you know, have to flip it within 20 seconds. All right, I've got no kick. We got 2.5 sets to go. The nightclub's full. What do we do? Let's just chuck a towel on the floor tom, detune the whole thing, put the kick drum mic on it, and that's the kick drum now.
Well done.
That was kind of strange. Strange as far as playing. I don't think I've ever concentrated that hard in my life on a gig. Normally, you know, covers gig, rock up. Yeah, we're going to play the same shit.
Yeah.
Everyone plays the same tunes.
Didn't expect it.
Yeah, didn't expect to have to play like a left-hand bass drum type thing. That was pretty strange. The one other one is post-gig strangeness. We used to do loads of gigs over in Macau. In the casinos with Veneno as a halfway / playing Latin music and playing top 40s covers. And because the casinos there generate so much money, the security is under they're told you don't manhandle because you have no idea what they're worth to the casino. So we're not grabbing people and muscling. Like some of the things that people were doing over there wouldn't happen at the Star.
Right.
You know, because you get kicked out of the Star for looking at someone wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So over there, security doesn't touch anyone. And there was this guy who was just like totally pissing it up all night. And they were asking him to leave. This was 3 a.m, band stuck around at the club, just having a couple of drinks. Asking him to leave, getting the shits with him. He runs up on stage with a Corona in his hand and pours it all over the keyboard rig. 2 keyboards and a submixer. So, you know, they got him off stage, gave him an open bar tab. Yeah, that was strange.
That's strange.
That was fucking strange. Like, how do you get the really drunk guy off stage? Give him an unlimited bar tab. And he passed out and they put him in a wheelchair and took him up to his room.
Right.
Strange as far as being a Sydney muso. Can you imagine being at the casino and being so wasted that the only thing they could do is give you more drinks and then put you in a wheelchair and safely get you to your room? No. You walk into the casino here and you get punched out the front door for wearing the wrong fucking shoes. You know? So that shit was pretty strange.
Yeah. That's cool.
I was just trying to think of other strange ones.
No, that's
tops the strangeness.
Yeah, that's. All right, man. So just in closing, so you're doing Jersey Boys. You've got your band. What does the next 12 months hold?
The same as kind of the last 12 months and the 12 months before. There's no kind of map for. Yep. At least in my case, being a self-employed muso, when the work comes up, you kind of just got to be there. Yep. Be the guy that people want to call. Yep. I guess. I've been pretty fortunate.
Don't be a dick.
Pretty much, man. I think
be on time.
Yeah, the
learn your shit. Don't be a dick.
Basically, you know, and it's really almost feels stupid saying those things, but it is kind of that basic. I think Absolutely. I think just being a working muso, if you can pull a 20-something year career out of it, I've never done any other job. Yeah. From before I left school, but from the moment I actually left school up until, now, it's been playing drums.
Awesome.
So, in my mind, I just had to be the guy that people wanted to call. So I did shit like learn how to sing BVs. Because everyone will call the guy that sings as well as plays. It's a really basic thing. So that's my next 12 months is hopefully going to be like the last 20 years. Awesome. People call. Hopefully they call me before they call other people. That's all I can kind of hope for. As far as if I know what's happening, I got no idea.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's gigs.
That's
it's
kind
gigs.
Of
it's
too,
teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, this time last year I didn't know I'd be on Jersey Boys.
Yep.
This time 3 years ago I didn't know I'd be doing the Bodyguard.
Yep.
15 years ago I didn't know that I'd be living in London. Things like that.
Yep.
So it's I think at least for me, just keep on pushing myself to be. Yeah, I've said that for a long time. Just push myself to be the person that other people want to call.
Beautiful.
So they want to call you because every time you've done whatever it is they've asked of you, you've done it well.
Perfect.
Well enough for them to call back.
Yep.
And I think that's what starts up a career.
Yep.
And you see I learned that from the guys that have just lasted,
Yeah.
Guys that have been doing this for 40-something years and they're still gigging and they're still relevant within the scene because I think they kept that attitude. It's like, I'm just going to be so awesome. Hopefully you call me next time.
That's cool.
I think that's all you can do. Really.
Well, on that, I look forward to following for the next 20 years.
Yeah, hopefully the next 20 pan out like the last 20.
Yeah.
They've been good years.
Good stuff. Steve Marin,
Ugh.
thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. Cheers.